going to talk about Google Ads offline conversions and how to do it without a technical setup or being a technical person at all, or needing the so-called Google Click ID or GCLID for short. Yes, there's an absolute way. You do not need a Google Click ID to do offline conversion tracking, so that when somebody buys offline or you find a lead turns into a qualified opportunity, you can pass that back to your ad account in a very simple way, way more simple than the average Joe knows about, and makes it so that the average Joe can actually do it. And if you do actually do this and you're not doing it already, you can make 3 times as much as you are now from Google Ads just by putting this process in place. Now, this isn't a embellishment, okay? The average client we have at our firm, when we instituted offline conversion tracking, would get 3 times as much profit out of a Google Ads account once it was implemented. When we talk about longer term, building up enough traction in the account with it, and over like a 36-month process, being 36 months in, they're making 3 times as much from the account with offline conversion tracking versus without using it. But anybody can do it. It's not hard at all to do. And I'm going to teach you how to do it in this video so you can do it for yourself. So with that said, I'm going to go over what the process is. If you stay to the end of the video, I'm going to give you some examples of different markets where we did do this, how to do it, and how much money it made our client when we actually switched to using this process versus did not have this process in place. Make sure you stay to the end of the video for that, because you're going to want to know how well this will work for your market in specific. All right, so let's get into it. Technically, there's 2 ways to tell Google about something that's happened offline. They call it offline conversion tracking because you're tracking stuff that happened offline. Some people get confused by that term. If something happened on your website, you could track this with online. Technically, nobody calls it that. Online conversion tracking. Whereas if something happens not on your website, it's tracked through offline conversion tracking, which this can be there's multiple use cases and ways to make money with offline conversion tracking. With the key thing being, the better conversion tracking data you have, that's more correlated with purchases, and the more accurate data that you have, the more results you get with Google Ads, bottom line. When you're talking about when you're generating leads from Google Ads, you can track whether that lead was qualified. That is, did they ask about the service at hand? We're a foundation repair company. Did they at least ask about fixing their foundation? Track that. Or you could track if a person got a quote. Did they get a quote or not? Did they show up for their appointment? You could track that. Or whether they purchased something or not. Did the quote close? What you want to ultimately do to get the most out of Google Ads, if you're the most ambitious person here, you want to track each of those steps if there exists multiple steps in your sales process, so that the algorithm that runs the ads is trying to find you the customers you want, has the best data to do it possible. You may say, well, if I give them the sales data, why do I need to track whether they're qualified or not as a separate goal? Because Google's able to rack up data from how many qualified leads you have quicker than the sales, and so you'll get ramped up quicker as a result. It'll eventually use the sales data, and you'll use the sales data as its own thing that it looks at and uses to optimize your ads, but initially you use them these other things. With the client, if they're cooperative with us, we'll track whether the lead happened, that is, did they fill out the form, did they call? We'll track whether it was an actual qualified lead or not, did they show up to the appointment, did they get a quote, did they buy, and then how much did they spend, okay? And then we're gonna optimize for leads, and then qualified leads when we get enough qualified lead data racked up in our account, then appointments, then quotes, and then sales finally, after we've got racked up at least 100 sales in the account. And that gets us ramped up as quick as possible with the most overall opportunity from the account when it's all said and done with. Now for e-commerce, by the way, if you take any phone orders, which most of you guys do, even though you say you don't, but 10% of your orders may come through the phone because it's a guy buying wholesale, or he's buying for a big event or whatever. And if you don't actually plug that data into your account as well, not just the cart sales, Google's gonna optimize around the freaking biggest, most juiciest customers that you have. Why the hell would you want that? Right? I mean, if you could just have big whale customers and that's it, wouldn't you just want that? Obviously, yes. You got to get that data into the account as well. That's what offline conversion tracking lets you do. If you're an offline business, you're a brick and mortar business, local business, you can track whether somebody clicks on an ad online and then comes into your store and buys using a process that we've pioneered, which essentially they're going to do. There's two ways to do it. One of which is you get people who called or filled out the form or live chatted with you, and then when they come in and buy later, you get their name somehow during the checkout process, and then you compare that to the data you have that on your incoming lead data when they asked a question before coming in, and you tie everything together that way. Or you get them to, when they check out, say that you'll give them a 5% discount for registering on your website for, it could just be like a newsletter or something like that. And that newsletter subscription page is on a certain dedicated page for you to track that offline conversion. And there'll be a form there that says, how much should you spend today? That amount gets sent back to Google, and Google's able to say, aha, I know which customer this is you're talking about. They searched for this originally, they clicked on this ad, this is how much they spent, and then you'll have the sales data that occurred offline on and in through your ad account in that situation. So as you can see here, it doesn't matter what business you have, offline conversion tracking can help you make more money from your ads because you're gonna have more data to optimize from than you had before, if you will. And then, even with e-commerce businesses, by the way, even if you just track car purchases, that's not gonna get you the same results as tracking phone calls where people are asking questions, form fills where people are asking questions. That extra data gets you more results because the algorithm has more data to work with. I know because I've tested this heavily, and we're going to do this every time now as a result. We're going to do offline conversion tracking with every client that we have as a result. And even with that, you're going to track not just sales, but people who add something to cart, somebody who gets to the checkout, then also somebody who buys, all these different stages. So I'm getting a bit off track here, but just really know the more data you have in your account, the more advantage you have in your market against all the competitors. The system's going to be smarter about advertising, spending your money, and you'll get more result short-term as well as long-term. Now, to do offline conversion tracking, right? Track the stuff that's offline. There's two main ways to do it. You have your GCLID code, which I mentioned you don't need that. You get the Google Click ID code, which is, you could try it for yourself. Click on any Google ad that you see on Google, on a banner ad, whatever. You get to the landing page it takes you to. At the end of the URL, there'll be a question mark, and it'll say GCLID equals, and then a random string of characters and letters. That's the Google Click ID. Ultimately, you grab that end of the URL. When that person fills out a form or calls, you can get that Google Click ID using a little script, essentially. And it takes it so that the lead comes in with that Google Click ID, and if they've later on buy or they're marked as a qualified lead or whatever, you give that back to Google you can do it through their API technically, or you can do it through a spreadsheet that you simply upload to Google, again, which is what we typically use because it's the most accurate. You can have a human re-verify the sales and leads and all that came in, that they're real and all that. But the other way to do offline conversion tracking is through uploading an email or phone number. Given that Google has a record of all their users, about half of the people who use Google are signed into Google, okay? Of which, when you signed up for a Gmail or Google account, you had to give them an email address, obviously, as well as a phone number for recovery. They have that on file. So when somebody, let's say, comes through your brick and mortar store and buys, and you give them the email address, they're going to compare that to the emails of all the users that they have in their own database. And they'll say, aha, I know who you're talking about. Okay, and therefore your conversion will show up in your ad account at that point, right? But you also need the user ID. So it's not like Facebook, in which you could just say, here's an email address list of all the buyers. That doesn't work by itself. You got to collect this user ID from the user and then give it back with the user ID as well. It's a little bit of a technical setup to actually do. You don't need to do this technical setup. There's a better way, if you will, which I'm going to get into in what is the entire point and topic of this video. Normally, offline conversion tracking, the reason why people don't do it, even though I've mentioned it 100 times on this channel already, how damn profitable it really is. It's hard to set up and it's hard to maintain. Or they'll try to automate the process of sending this data to Google Ads, and it's unreliable to the point where the unreliableness of it will take out any presumed benefit. And this even happens with Salesforce, the biggest CRM out there. Try to get your CRM system to track your leads coming in so that somebody who fills out a form goes into Salesforce. Somebody on your sales team marked that lead as sold in Salesforce, and you want that to send the sales event back to Google Ads. It's very unreliable in the way that it works, even though Google Ads has a partnership with Salesforce. Weirdly enough, I've seen it for one of the companies I've invested in. We'll stop paying our Salesforce bill because we had a rough patch initially. And for some reason, Salesforce just keeps sending offline conversion data about sales that never occurred to Google Ads. I was completely just floored by seeing that, but essentially it makes sense. And I thought it through. I was like, they're sending false sales data to the account to make people think that A, they need the CRM integration and therefore you need Salesforce, but Salesforce is helping them make money. So I really don't understand, though, why they'd be so stupid to do this. I guess they just never thought guys like me would look into it. A part of that, whether you're using Zoho or you're using Pipedrive, if you try to send the data back to Google from their API system via the tools that the CRM systems have that they give you to do this, at least any CRM that I've tried, and I've tried all those, it's so unreliable, it's not useful. To the point where even though it costs us a bunch more money to have to send the data to Google manually through a spreadsheet, we're still doing it. Because at least then we can verify the conversion we wanted to upload, got uploaded, Google recognized it, and it's a done deal. Not maybe it got sent, maybe it didn't, whatever. I'm just winging it. This stuff's way too important for your business to just wing it because you want to save time uploading it. Which, of course, you can just train an employee to do this or offshore contractor and do it for you and you're done. You don't have to even think about it. It's not that much extra work every month. And if you have a lot of leads coming in, it can be, but 2/3 of the profit from your account on the table because you don't want to do it, now you're just being silly, huh? Don't be a silly person. Automating the process using like a CRM or whatnot, don't recommend that. I mean, technically there's a way to do a Google Sheet, send your data there, have that sent to Google Ads. That's fairly reliable. That's another option, but you either have a situation where your data flow is unreliable or it's really hard to set up. Doing enhanced conversion tracking, hard to set up. Even taking the Google Click ID and uploading it via a manual spreadsheet, that's hard to do too, because, of course, put it into a spreadsheet, have all the data Google wants there in different columns, and then upload it to Google. It's labor intensive. There's a better solution for the average Joe out there that wants to do the offline conversion tracking, get all the benefits from it without all the seeming BS involved with the process, or as little of it as possible. For the average Joe, CallRail itself, and again, I'm not getting paid by CallRail here as much as it may seem, provides a great middle of the road option for ease of use and reliability. Ease of use in that you don't need to know anything about any kind of technical setup to do offline conversion tracking. All you need to do is plug in and take the JavaScript tracking code that CallRail gives you, put it on your website footer, which makes it go across the entire website. It's a copy-paste thing. Give that to your developer, put it on my footer. With that said, you're now set up for offline conversion tracking, because what it'll do once you have that in place, you got your account, you set up the Google Ads integration for CallRail. CallRail then will create an automatically created goal as a result of that integration for phone calls, form fills, chats, text messages, if you're doing all of them. And at that point in time, once you activate the form tracking module on CallRail, it'll make a copy of every form fill that comes across your entire website, landing pages, every page of your website automatically. Just because that JavaScript code's on your website, it'll magically pick it up, make a copy of it, put it in CallRail, and then all you got to do to send a offline conversion to Google Ads is put a thumbs up or thumbs down on it to make it a qualified lead or a sale or whatever you wanted to track offline, define as an offline conversion. And there's a value box that you just input the value there, and that could be this lead score, that could be the quoted amount, that could be, predicted contract value, which we've done before, that could be the sales amount. And then once you put that value in the value box, it shows up under those automatically created goals in Google Ads. And that's all you have to do. So it's a point and click operation. No spreadsheets involved, no API stuff that you have to deal with your CRM that's unreliable. Even though CallRail is using the API, it's not unreliable. So you're getting a lot of automation, if you will, or simplicity with none of the unreliableness and without having to do the manual stuff anymore so much. You do that for the form leads coming in, and every phone call that comes in, you can do the same thing. Thumbs up, thumbs down, also the value box. And if you put thumbs up, you can have it send an offline conversion to Google Ads. If they buy or whatever, you can have the value of that sale go to Google Ads to that goal, if you will. And typically, the way that you want to do it is you want to have Google Ads or Google Analytics track the actual form lead or phone call that comes in separately. That's a separate goal, okay? The automatically created goals through the Google Ads integration that CallRail gives you in your account, that's just simply for tracking the offline conversions itself by itself. So you have one goal that just tracks leads, one that tracks offline conversions. There's plenty of benefits also, other than what I just described, into this and why this is so good. For one, it allows you to upload the G braid or W braid. iOS devices and Apple, with their privacy updates that they did, don't allow certain tracking scripts and so forth on their devices. As a result of that, your Google Click ID, which you normally needed to have to upload your offline conversions to Google manually, like 10% of the time it's not there anymore. Instead, in its place, you got the W braid or G braid. Signify this is an Apple device and therefore no GCLID is available. Google had a workaround to get around Apple's nonsense so we can still track our offline conversions, which is when they came up with this G braid, W braid thing, of which you can't upload a G braid or W braid to Google as an offline conversion, at least manually. You can send it through their API, which requires a script and some middleware or whatever, or you can just use CallRail's system and it just sends it to the API for you. So you don't need no middleware. CallRail is your middleware, if you will. That's the one benefit of using CallRail's system for offline conversion tracking. It also allows for one-click import. I mean, I basically already said this, but as opposed to taking the Google Click ID, put it into a spreadsheet, then taking the spreadsheet and uploading it to Google, you can just simply thumbs up, bang, it's sent right away to CallRail right away. Same thing with the value box, if you will, to upload the conversion value itself. A lot more simple, a lot more easy to do for the average Joe, like I mentioned before. You can easily update a offline conversion for a stage 2 also in just as easy of a fashion. A lot of times you'll want to track whether a lead's qualified or not as one stage in the sales process, and then you'll want to track whether they bought or not as a second stage in the sales process, so that you can build up data about qualified leads that are coming in, like I mentioned before. Start optimizing for that first, once you've got 30 to 100 of those conversions racked up. And then when you have enough sales tracked in the ad account, then you'll switch all your campaigns to optimize for that, which, by the way, what you do is you take the campaigns, and if you were doing that exact scenario, you would switch it from maximize conversions bidding strategy to maximize conversion value bidding strategy, indicating it's going to optimize for conversion value versus conversions, which, a conversion goal has, a thing that says, did this happen or not? And then there's also a value. You can optimize for the conversion itself or the value of the conversion. And so if you're using CallRail for offline conversion tracking, you can have, which is our favorite way to use it when we use it this way. If a lead's qualified, that's going to be the conversion itself. And then the value is going to be if they bought it or not. And we're going to optimize for the qualified leads until we have 100 sales. And then we're going to switch the campaigns over to optimize for sales revenue and switch from maximize conversion bidding strategy to maximize conversion value bidding strategy, which will look at the revenue component or the conversion goal in general and look at it exclusively for campaign optimization and steering purposes and scaling purposes. All right. So you have 2 stages of the offline conversion tracking process that you can have using CallRail to your advantage here for this offline conversion tracking you want to do ultimately for your company. It's not a matter of if you should do it. You should absolutely do it. Like I said, I do it for every single client now. Even if we had to raise our fees a little bit to do it, but for a client to not do it, I mean, I could not do it knowing how much it worked for every client and how much work it takes. You're spending all this money on ad spend, and then you're not giving Google all the data. You're throwing half or more of your ad money away by just not getting all the data back into your account. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Also, get a bit further here. I wanted to say that if you aren't subscribed to this channel yet, you absolutely should. What are you waiting for already? You've watched several of my videos already. I understand how people are. They want to watch somebody for a while before they subscribe, but once you subscribe, you're a part of the team, and you're going to get, of course, the updates about the stuff that's changing with Google Ads and so forth all the time. A lot of times there's stuff that's changed. What I said works one day doesn't work another. What works today, or what didn't work today works now. Stuff's changing all the time, and I'm on the edge with this stuff. I'm abreast of all these changes because I'm doing testing in an ad account. Every single thing that comes out as it comes out, and I tell you what's working, what's not working. So if you want the best information from the source, subscribe to this channel. Also, check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. You can find step-by-step information on my blog on how to guarantee results for yourself as we guarantee them for our clients. So if you like the channel, you're going to like it as well. If you have any questions about anything I'm covering here or any marketing related question, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours. By the way, you can reach out to me several other ways, one of which is through the Discord group. I got a link to that in the video description. Also through my site, of course. You can give me a call. We can set up a private consult, or just if you have a one-off question, you can ask me there. Set up a call there as well. And then beyond that, if you would like me to personally do your ad strategy, this is what I do day in and day out for clients at our firm. We've got dozens of clients. I do all the ad strategy for all our clients. And we provide a contingency guarantee for our clients, by the way, where if you come in and say, hey, Corey, I want to get more results on our ads, well, I'll say, I'll give you a 50% increase in your sales from your ads right now before taking a management fee. Once you get it, of course, you're making more money than our fee is. We'll start charging our fee then, but it's already offset by the sales increase we brought you. I'll make you an offer like that. It's a can't refuse offer. And it shows we have some skin in the game and we actually give a damn about what we're doing. If you would like me to give you a quote like that and an 8-quarter projection of your results, let me know. Reach out to me through my site. I also have ad templates available. We've worked in hundreds of markets now. If we've worked in your market before, we can sell you the winning ads, landing pages, all of it that work for your market. You copy paste those in your ad account for yourself and get the same results we did in another city or country that you're in. I can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front, and for the 4-figure fee that we charge for the template, you're going to get multi-million-dollar ad results from yourself with none of the time, money, and effort we had to spend in blood, sweat, and tears to figure out what the hell works in that market perfectly. So it makes no sense to do it all for yourself when we've already done it. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying here. So those are your main benefits for using this CallRail account to do offline conversion tracking. Okay? Here is the downsides, which is why we don't use it for our own firm. Well, number one, there's ad blocker issues. Around 30% of users on the web now use an ad blocker of some type. A lot of the ad blockers blocks tracking scripts altogether too, which includes like JavaScript tracking scripts, ones from known tracking programs. So what it'll do is it'll block the JavaScript code that I mentioned that you have to put on your website before to do the offline conversion tracking from rendering on the user's web browser. Therefore, you're not going to be able to get the form submission when somebody submits the form or calls. And so it's like that person never existed, practically speaking. This will block anywhere from 10 to 30% of the leads coming in from being able to be uploaded to Google itself. Only having even 2/3 of the offline conversion data is a hell of a lot better than zero offline conversion data. And it's plenty good enough for it to be worth your time doing. In fact, the tripling of your profitability of your account already assumes you're going to undercount the offline conversions by 1/3. Okay? So it's a hell of a lot better than nothing. Do it anyway. But wanted to mention that up front. Given that you can technically do enhanced conversion tracking where you're trying to upload the email or phone number instead of the Google Click ID, and do this in a way with a server-side system that does not or will not get blocked by ad blockers. So for the most part, that gets into some nuance here. I mean, if you're really advanced, you may want to look into that. I am technically building a script right now that will allow us to do call tracking on CallRail that gets around the ad blockers of blocking the script itself. And it has to do with taking data from Google Analytics and pairing it with CallRail data and merging it together using server-side tracking. But anyway, that's one other main drawback to this, other than you cannot track 3 or more steps in the sales process with CallRail as your offline conversion tracking tool. Meaning, if going back to what I was saying before, if you want to track whether the person was initially qualified, booked an appointment, showed for their appointment, did an upsell, let's say, you want to track all those things, well, at least via the exact methodology that I described, it's easy for a small business owner like you to do, where you just have to update the thumbs up there, and that fires off a conversion, and update the value box, and it uploads all the revenue there that you need. you can't do it for more than 2 steps, given that the 2 steps would be the conversion, and then the value being the second step, technically, if you will. So that's another consideration and why we don't use it for our own firm, because we're going to need to set up separate offline conversion goals for each step. And with that, we have to do it the manual way. But we're set up as a firm to handle labor-intensive tasks like that. So for you, the business owner, want to get around that, you settle for 2 steps. 2 steps is already going to give you a bunch of results anyway. If you do want the most results, though, you still want to do as many steps as possible and use the manual process itself. If you want to know how much this works, maybe frankly, I mean, the 3x your profit rule when you're using offline conversion tracking versus not, that pretty much is universally applies to all markets. I'll stand behind that all day long. To give you a couple of individual markets, though, to give you an idea of how much this works, starting with e-commerce, we had an e-commerce brand that sells paint, okay, like house paint, not commercial paint. Roughly 70% of the sales go through the cart. 30% of them go through the phone itself, okay? Switching this client, just optimizing for cart sales, just optimizing for offline sales, this company essentially went from right around $1 million a year in sales revenue to over $5 million in sales revenue that they were stagnant before on, with campaigns that were running for years already with just that minimal amount of conversion data. Why this happened, though, do you understand why and how this is even possible? Going back to what I said before about bigger orders not being tracked, what we do want is people reselling the product. How do we get those? Well, when they come in, we got to be able to track them right. Well, we can only track them right if we track the sales that come through the phone, because they're typically always putting their order through the phone. They want to ask about a discount, they want to do this and that. So that was a complete game changer for this business. Just adding that one individual thing to their business. If you're in a market like that, I mean, that shows you just how insane, how much of a difference this can make for your company once you get the right data into your account finally. On the flip side, if we're doing lead generation, to give you an example there, we had a crime scene cleanup company that, if you blow your head off and somebody's going to clean the mess up, there's a specialized company that comes in and does that. Or somebody, grandpa dies and nobody finds him for, 2 months because nobody gives a shit about grandpa and he's rotten and rats have been eating him or whatever. Who cares? Somebody's got to clean this up. There's specialized companies for this. Crime scene and biohazard cleanup companies is what they're called, and that's the niche. Anyway, in that market, doing the offline conversion tracking made all the difference in how much money we were making as well, given that there's a pretty big difference in one job versus another. Because at first, we're just optimizing for leads, okay? And not only that, but the leads, there's a big difference between one type of lead and another. Somebody calling, I'm just wondering how much it would cost if you just come and clean this blood up, versus somebody who's like, hey, we need it done right now, okay? Big difference in the lead quality. So for those 2 reasons, there's a big opportunity with offline conversion tracking to upload the right data about which leads are qualified and then what sales came in and how much they spent, okay? So this client went from about 50% of their leads being actually qualified opportunities to 80 to 90% of the leads being qualified opportunities once we had the offline conversion data flowing into the ad account. Not only that, the amount of sales revenue that we're producing off of the Google Ads account went up over double what we were having before. Why? Because what we're optimizing before was for a certain lead cost. Well, when there's leads coming through that are better than what we're willing to pay, we're not getting them. Whereas once we see the whopper lead come through that's likely going to turn into a $10,000 deal, we now show up because the system now knows it can spend more than what we typically would spend per click for somebody, because the person has 10 times the presumed or estimated value in terms of likelihood of converting, and more importantly, the size of conversion itself. So just in a simple lead generation market, it makes all, and a simple one like that, where you would think like pretty much all the leads would be the same. Like, what difference does it make, Corey? All the leads it's always just what it makes all the difference. Okay. I don't care what market you're talking about. You could be talking about broken toilet repair. There's a big difference between one guy and another. There just is. It can't be disputed. I've done this way too long. Anyway, in that scenario, And by the way, just as a small aside, in that crime scene cleanup company example, we actually did keypad scoring because Google has several ways you can score the offline and send the offline conversion data to Google. You can do it by keypad scoring. So after the call's over, you can hit like a 1, digit 1, and then you can score it between like 1 and 10. And that will automatically send the data to CallRail and then therefore send it to Google Ads so that you don't have to even go into CallRail whether a lead's qualified and whether they bought to Google Ads. You also can do conversion. There's a feature called conversion intelligence that'll search for certain keywords in a call. So they type, or if during the phone conversation with your sales staff, they say book, appointment, credit card, it can also mark the lead as qualified and send it to Google Ads as well. So if you're going to add some automation, forget about the CRM. Use CallRail's system, use their conversion intelligence, and they can do a hell of a lot for you with basically no extra effort just by using that. And it's not going to be as good as manually like verifying every lead, whether it's qualified or not, because they're not going to have as much gaps in your data still. But that could get you easily half the results just doing it at that level. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Hopefully that made a lot of sense for you. I'll talk to you on the next one. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.